Hey everyone, Matt with Triple Locked Adventures. Today we're going to do a brief video on brakes for your vehicle, why it's really important, especially for us vehicles that are going a lot of on the road, off the road, heavy load, light load. We're really putting our brakes through, we're asking a lot from our brakes on these vehicles, and it's really important you buy high quality parts that are meant and are designed for that task. Brakes are super important. I mentioned that in the beginning of the video, and the question really is why, right? Like I mentioned, you're putting these vehicles through a lot of rigorous tasks. You're driving it on the street, you're going on long trips, maybe you're hauling a bunch of gear that's adding a lot of added weight to the vehicle, which causes a lot more friction when you're trying to stop the vehicle, which in response means a lot more heat and a lot more demand on that braking system. Especially vehicles like mine that are heavy overland vehicles, it is extremely important that you have a good braking system. There are a couple options that you can do, right? Let's talk about those. Your first option is going to be an OEM pad and an OEM rotor. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, that is a really good solution. It is probably going to be one of the most affordable price to performance values that you're going to get. Sure, there's cheaper brakes out there, but not always the best performing for a lot of different reasons. Some of those reasons are going to be the quality of the rotors are going to be subpar. You may have warping that will happen very quick on them. The pad materials may not be great either. So going really cheap on brakes isn't always the best answer. There are some very affordable kits out there. I personally have ran, I'm trying to think of the name of the brand. I always mix these two up. Power Stop. There's Power Brakes, which makes the big brake kits that everybody loves on these vehicles, and we'll talk about those in a second. And then there's Power Stop. I have used the Power Stop kits in the past. If you look at my website, I think that is currently what is listed on my website is something I recommend. Those are a really affordable kit. My only complaint, now that I've been testing those for 2 sets, so I've gone through, I think, over 60,000 miles, multiple sets on the vehicle. They do have a decent amount of brake dust, and they do tend to, the rotors tend to warp relatively easy. I would say almost more than an OEM rotor. So a little feedback on that. So your next step up, like I said, you got your cheaper brakes. Your next step up from OEM pads and rotors is an upgraded rotor and pad package, which is what I'm going to show you guys today. The next step up from there is a big brake kit. Those are becoming really popular, and I actually do think, for the sake of this video, a big brake kit is your best solution on a heavily loaded vehicle. It's not in my budget. This costs less than a big brake kit does by almost half. So, you know, is it worth it? I probably think so. I've drove a few vehicles with big brake kits in the past. It makes a huge difference, especially on a large vehicle. The larger that diameter of that rotor is, the more efficient it is at getting rid of heat. So those are going to be a good solution. Today, we have kind of that middle package, right? So you're not at an OEM rotor and pad, but you're also not at a full-blown big brake kit. These are an OEM size rotor. These are fronts, these are rears. I'll show you guys a little bit more here in a second. And then we have upgraded pads. The rotors I went with are from a company called DBA. DBA is based out of Australia, and they are world known as making really high quality rotors. The way they do their design process, the machining process, the materials used, the coatings used for anti-corrosion, all that stuff is very high quality. Specifically, the T3 series, which we have here, maybe I'll do a small box so it's a little bit easier and I won't be blocking the camera. The T3 series is their 4000 series of brake rotors. They are specifically designed for heavier duty vehicles with heavier weight, off-road applications. They are a slotted rotor. They do have some slots that dissipate a little bit of heat. It also does wipe off any dirt or debris that could be on there. That's kind of the design. One of the things that they're really known for is their cooling vanes. So inside the rotor, you're going to have cooling vanes, unless it's a solid rotor. Most rotors these days have cooling vanes. The DBA rotors are known for what their design is. They call it the kangaroo paw. It kind of looks like a little kangaroo paw, but they're known for it, and it's actually really, really great cooling capacity. I have never actually ran these before, so before I go out and recommend you guys buying these, although I've heard a lot of good things online, I don't like to say things until I actually test them myself. Fingers crossed though, I've heard a lot of really, really good things about these rotors. I know even guys in the road racing communities, SCCA communities, love DBA rotors on the vehicles they can get them for. So let's go there, right? So we've got high quality rotors, both back and front. And then pads. There are a lot of pads on the market, and like I said, EBC was just readily available to me in a good price with great ratings. I have actually had EBC brakes in the past. You'll see on one of these boxes here, actually both of these, break down all their different levels of brakes from kind of like your real basic OEM-ish pad all the way up to full-blown crazy track pads for literally race cars. Only race cars. These are on their, they've actually just changed the colors, but these are orange. They will now be red, not to confuse people with the old red stuff, but these are the HD brakes. So these are a specific designed for heavy duty vehicles, as you can see, performance race, Jeep, truck, SUV. These are their HD Extreme or something. What is the name on these again? Heavy duty street upgrade package, Elite. No, there was a name. Can't find it now. But there was an actual name, a nomenclature on these. They are their heavy-duty pads for off-road vehicles with large tires that are going to be towing, that are going to be hauling heavy weights. Maybe you're running that upgraded 34, 35, 37-inch, 40-inch tire. You're running that a lot larger tire. You've got a lot of rotational mass going on. That's what those are designed for. They have a great break-in procedure, a great bed-in procedure on them. They're a great pad. I've used DBC, other lines of products on performance cars in the past. I've also used HPA pads. There are a lot of good products out there, so don't get stuck on what you guys see here. Really what I want this video to be focused on is it is important that you guys buy quality brakes for your off-road vehicles, especially the ones that are like mine that are really heavy. You've got a lot of added stress on that vehicle, and OEM brakes are designed to hold the GVWR of the vehicle, but there are improvements that can be made by going with aftermarket pads and rotors. Now you may be asking, awesome, this sounds like a great idea. Is there any downsides? Yes, there's a few things that you need to look out for. When you upgrade to heavy duty pads and some rotors on the market, there's a few things you need to look for. Let's start with pads first. The more aggressive the pad is, the more brake dust you're going to have, period. There are pads that have lower dust ratings and a pretty good stopping power. You're never going to have the perfect balance. That's just not the case. The more stopping power you get, the more brake dust you're going to get. The other factor is its working temperature loads. And something like this is designed to do this case scenario. Working temperatures is more important when you start getting into like when you start getting into race pads. Race pads are designed to work for a certain temperature, and that's why you'll see guys on racetracks, they'll pump the brakes, they'll do some really hard stops coming out of the pit lane or some warm-up laps, because they actually have to get those brakes hot enough to even function. They do not, when you're just riding around and the brakes are cold, they actually do not stop. You actually have to get them hot in order for the brakes to actually start to work. That's not what you want on the street, obviously. The other downside to heavy aggressive brake pads, again, not these ones, but when you start getting into some of those track pads, is they squeak and make so much noise. It's just part of it. It's part of the friction. It's part of the friction materials they use. They make a lot of noise and a lot of brake dust, but they really, really stop. You know, if you're going 100 plus on a racetrack and you need to stop, that's what's going to do it. It's going to have that noise when you're coming to a stop. That is not necessary on a vehicle that's going to probably be doing slower off-roading or hauling heavy weights, right? I think that really covers pads. Rotors, a few things you want to look out for. I particularly like a smooth rotor. I don't really love doing These are slotted rotors, so make sure it doesn't fall out of the box here. You can see there's slots on these. That's called a slotted rotor. I really don't love cross-drilled rotors. Cross-drilled rotors are the ones where you see holes that go through the rotor. Couple reasons why I don't like that. One, it can cause premature cracking, especially if you go from really heavy braking to say into like a water crossing or something like that. Say you came down a long hill and you're using a lot of brakes and you're going to a water crossing, it can cause cracking. I've never had it happen, but I have heard bad stories about it. What I have had happen is that those brakes will pack in with a lot of mud. You'll get a lot of mud and stuff in these rotors just from all that dirt and stuff getting in there. And I don't know. I just have found that cross-drilled rotors are not my cup of tea. I know some race guys really like them, but they change brakes out almost every time they're out on the track. So now slotted rotors, again, I don't really love it. The idea on it is that it expels some of the gas. It also does a clean wipe because those areas are slightly sharp. As you can imagine, that pad, as that rotor comes through that pad, it's just giving like a very slight scrape to it. It's very slight, but it allows it to get a clean biting edge every single time. In the off-road community, I think it's not a bad idea. I think smooth rotors tend to give you more surface area. Are you losing much? No, but I do think that just smooth rotor is the best way to go. But these ones are not cross-drilled, they are slotted. So we're gonna try them. The ones I had on my vehicle before, which were the Power Stop ones, are cross-drilled and slotted. I never really loved that, but they are a pretty decent kit for the money. So, you know, sometimes you can't always afford a big brake kit or expensive parts. These are pretty affordable. We'll talk about price. There's a lot of different websites out there, and it seems like the price kind of varies based on the website. I know Slee Off-Road. I'll put a link in the bottom. If you have a 4Runner or a GX or a Land Cruiser, they actually have a pre-configured kit. You can pick all these parts out right on their website with DBA pads instead of the EBC pads. Their pricing was actually very fair, but their shipping was insane. I had it in my cart and I went to purchase it and it was like $400 in shipping. So anyway, I did not buy them from them. I ended up kind of piecemealing it, getting actually better pricing with free shipping. So maybe I'll put some links in the description to you guys if you are interested in this exact product. But like I said, I don't want to focus so much on the products here, more about what you should look for. Other than that, guys, other things that you may want to consider on brakes is make sure you do your fluid. I don't have it with me here. I specifically like Motul fluid. That's what I personally like. You can use anything on the market, but make sure you change your fluid relatively often. You know, I come from the maintenance industry. I used to work in automotive service. BMWs and some of the German cars, they like it done every 30,000 miles. Do I think that's necessary on your vehicle? Probably not, but what I would say in general is follow what your user manual says, but keep in mind, if you have a really built out 4Runner, Jeep, Land Cruiser, Ineos, Raptor, you know, even a big van, take that service manual in consideration for how your vehicle's built out. My vehicle, I want to say it's 60,000 miles is the recommended service interval. I could be wrong on that. On the brake fluid, I do it every 30, and that's because my truck is very heavy. I'm using a lot of brakes. You want to make sure that fluid is up to snuff and get that old stuff out, do a brake flush, and get new fluid in. Like I said, follow your manuals. One other thing you may want to consider, and this really is a lot of older vehicles, but some new vehicles benefit from this too, you can upgrade your brake hose that goes from, it's really kind of the frame mount to the actual caliper. A lot of times from the factory, it's a soft rubber hose from the OEM. You can upgrade those to a stainless brake line. I will tell you, make sure you're buying from a nice, reputable brake source though. There are a lot of them out there, but make sure you're buying a nice quality stainless line. And make sure you buy a brake line fitting wrenches. You're gonna want those. That's really it, guys. So you really want to look, things you want to look for in the 3 levels are, you want to make sure you're buying quality parts. Don't cheap out on brakes, man. It's the only thing that stops you. Either go with an OEM pad and rotor, do an upgraded DBA, name your brand, a nice upgraded set of rotors and pads. If it's not costing you about $1,000 for front and rear, just in parts, you're probably not in the right level yet. That's somewhere around where you want to be. It does depend on the vehicle. I'm sure if you have like a Ford Raptor with like Brembo brakes or something, it's probably way more. So take that for a grain of salt. But you know what I'm trying to say. Don't buy aftermarket cheap parts. Buy a nice quality aftermarket if you're going to go not OEM. Next level up from there is a big brake kit. That's phenomenal. I would love to do a Power Brakes big brake kit on this truck. It's just not in the budget. So I think that covers everything, hopefully. Do you guys have any questions on brakes? Are you ready to do brakes? Are you excited to see me put these brakes on the vehicle? I am. I'm just waiting for some good weather. But stay tuned for next week. Like I always say, I really appreciate you guys. The support has been phenomenal. I got a lot of support on last week's video, which was kind of a little bit of a weird one. So if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. I thought that one was a little bit out of left field, but I've had good support on that. The channel's been growing like crazy. You guys are awesome. This season's really picking up, as you guys have seen on my other previous videos. I got wheels that came in, I got tires that came in, I've got all new brakes. I'm doing a lot of maintenance. Just had some other work done on the truck, just getting stuff maintenance-wise. Season's here. It's starting to get warm. You guys are gonna start seeing some camping and all kinds of stuff. But next week, fingers crossed, if the weather's nice, you're gonna see these brakes go on. Stay tuned. Please click like. Please click subscribe. I love you guys. We'll see you guys out on the trail.